So, what are we watching for our Turkey Day riff this year?
Aye, what are we doing for the... whatever?
So glad you asked. We are going to watch The Miracle on 34th Street.
Wow.
How thrilling.
I know, right?
It's a departure from the sort of thing we usually watch, for sure. It's not an obscure, decades-old educational film. It's a classic. And more basically, an actual movie. Well, what?
I mean, we're not watching the original classic 1947 version starring Maureen O'Hara, Edmund Gwenn, and Natalie Wood. We're watching The Miracle on 34th Street, the 1-hour TV version from 1955.
I see. And why?
Because
Just get on with it.
Because the 1955 version is more suitable for riffing due to it being really quite bad. Also, it's in the public domain, so I don't have to worry about getting a copyright notice or being demonetized.
Why would that matter when we're just watching a movie privately among ourselves?
I know, right?
Can you give us some idea what we're in for? What's this version of Miracle on 34th Street like?
Think of the original, then imagine a far less talented cast sprinting through a ruthlessly abridged version of that exact same story. That's what it's like.
Oh, like community theater.
Exactly like community theater. So what do you say? Should we watch the movie?
I'm ready.
When do we eat?
After the movie.
Let's watch the movie.
Oz has the in the title. It's that tiny little change.
Oh boy, it's my favorite toy store. Toys.
Everybody shops at Toys.
Oh, he's muted. You're muted.
I don't want to hear it. Go away.
Sorry to interrupt your work, but you're making a serious mistake. Huh? With reindeer, I mean. You're putting Prancer where Dasher should be. And Blitzen should always be on my right-hand side.
He should, huh?
Yes, and another thing.
Comet and Cupid shouldn't be next to each other. They aren't speaking at the moment. They fell out over a doe. It's very sad, but you didn't hear that from me.
Say, who are you?
My name is Kringle. Chris Kringle.
Mr. Claus, if you're
Be
nasty.
of help. Goodbye.
Macy's annual Thanksgiving parade to welcome Santa Claus and beseech him to protect us from the communist menace.
See, it's all in your wrists, like throwing a ball. Now watch.
What kind of ball do you throw like that?
Mrs. Walker, the new Santa Claus you hired is wonderful. Where'd you find him?
We answered the ad along with 100 others. He is good, isn't he?
Well, the parade's ready to start. You coming?
I'm going home and getting a hot tub. I may just stay there until next Thanksgiving.
That's one way to get out of Christmas.
If I want to, I can see it from the roof of my apartment. Bye.
This is incredible. I'm actually here in 1955 at the 1946 Macy's parade.
Look at that big baseball player.
He was a clown last year. They just painted him different. My mother told me. She manages the parade.
Boy, who invited Dracula?
Be a giant, isn't it?
Really, Mr. Gailey. And you a lawyer.
Lawyer, I am the Count.
Things as giants?
Well, maybe not now, Susan, but in olden times, like the giant Jack killed in the fairy tale.
Trust me, child, I was there.
I don't know any fairy tales.
You mean your mother or father never read you any?
My mother thinks they're silly, and I never met my father. You see, my mother and father were divorced when I was a baby.
I see. So it was your fault?
Ball player sure looks like a giant to me. Come in.
Hello. My housekeeper told me Susan was here. I'm her mother.
Yes, Susie's told me quite a bit about you.
I bid you welcome.
About you, too. The man in the front apartment. Hi, dear.
Parade's much better than last year.
Good. Hope Mr. Macy agrees with you.
Would you like a cup of coffee?
Oh, don't bother.
No bother. It's ready.
Everything is ready.
I want to thank you for being so kind to Susan.
All part of the plot. Surest way to meet the mother is to be nice to the child.
Well, how alarmingly frank.
Susan?
Susan tells me you don't approve of fairy tales.
I don't. I think we should be realistic and completely truthful with our children. Not let them grow up believing in a lot of myths and legends. Like Santa Claus, for example.
I see.
What are your feelings on, say, crucifixes?
Those prices, they should be.
Mother, I was thinking, we've got such a big turkey for dinner, and there are only 2 of us. Couldn't we invite Mr. Gailey? Couldn't we?
Oh, dear.
Oh, please don't bother. I'll just get a sandwich or something.
Feed on a vagrant, you know.
Oh, it's not that, dear, but I'm sure Mr. Gailey has other plans.
No, he hasn't. Have you?
Just answer the question.
As a matter of fact, to be truthful and completely realistic with the child, I must say I haven't.
Please, Mother, please. Didn't I ask her all right, Mr. Gailey?
Can I have my soul back now, please?
Depends.
Dinner's at 3 o'clock.
Susan, you asked just right.
I shall taste of your mother's blood upon the fall of the eventide.
Meanwhile, in the candy cane district...
Before those screaming brats arrive, I want to give you a few pointers on how to be a good Santa Claus.
Go ahead.
Now, here's a list of toys we have to push. You know, things we've overstocked. You'll find that a great many children are undecided as to what they want for Christmas. When this occurs, you immediately suggest one of these items. You understand?
I certainly do.
You're worse than Hitler.
They come. You get up there and go to work and memorize that list. And remember, be jolly. You're working for Macy's.
Remember, you get no breaks and lunch is at never o'clock. Now go earn that 75 cents an hour.
Doesn't want just because he bought too many of the wrong toys. That's what I've been fighting against for years.
And what's that, Pop?
Trying to commercialize Christmas.
Now let's have a delicious Coca-Cola. It's the pause that refreshes, you know.
Now then, what's your name, little boy?
Peter.
And what do you want for Christmas, Peter?
I want a fire engine just like the big ones, only smaller. It's got real hoses and squirts real water. I won't do it in the house, only in the backyard, I promise.
Now, Peter, I see you're a very good boy, so you'll get your fire engine.
You see, I told you to get me one.
In your face, Mom.
Well, look, you wait right over there. Mommy wants to thank Santa, too. What do you mean by saying a thing like that?
Can I help you?
I'm trying to find that kind of a fire engine. Macy doesn't have one. Nobody's got one.
But you can get those fire engines at the Acme Toy Company on West 46th Street. Only $4.50. Wonderful bargain. Oh, I follow the toy market pretty closely.
Macy's sending other people to other stores?
Well, the important thing is to keep the children happy. Whether Macy's or somebody else sell the toy, that doesn't matter, does it?
I'm not getting a commission either way. Why should I give a fuck?
I think Macy's did. I don't get it. I just don't get it.
Oh, yes, we have skates. Nice shiny skates, and they're very good indeed. But I don't think they're the kind of skates you want. Now, they have really wonderful skates at Gimbals. Gimbals?
The Hydrox to our Oreo?
He said I was to speak to you. You're the head of the toy department.
Yes, ma'am, yeah.
Well, look, I want to congratulate you on Macy's and this new stunt you're doing, sending people to other stores. To think that a big store like this puts the spirit of Christmas before the commercial. I haven't done much shopping here before, but from now on, I'm a regular Macy customer.
Gimbals?
The GoBots to our Transformers?
And when you come to see me at Macy's,
What's with the square dance arrangement of Jingle Bells here?
boys.
This seems awful silly, Mr. Gailey.
Well, maybe you'll feel differently after you've talked to Santa Claus. Goodbye, and Merry Christmas. Now, then, what's your name, little girl?
Susan Walker, what's your name?
Mine, Kris Kringle.
Not impressed.
Claus. You don't believe that, do you?
Casting Bela Lugosi Jr. as Fred in this version was certainly a choice.
You're the best looking one I've ever seen.
Thank you.
Your whiskers don't have those things that go over your ears.
That's because they're real, just like I'm really Santa Claus. Go on, pull them. Go on, go ahead, pull.
Ah, yes, I like the pain.
Ha, ha, ha. And what do you want me to bring you for Christmas?
Nothing, thank you. Whatever I want, my mother will get me. Sensible and doesn't cost too much.
Susan, dear, I think you've taken up enough this gentleman's time.
There are paying customers in line.
Your maid had to go home. Her mother sprained her ankle. She asked me to bring Susan down here for you.
Yes, she phoned.
I thought as long as we were here, we might as well talk to Santa Claus.
He's a nice old man, Mother. And his whiskers are real, too.
Yes, dear. A lot of old men have real whiskers like that.
And the same distinctive smell.
Go over and look at the dolls. I'll be with you in just a minute. I want to talk to
All right.
Mr. Gailey.
I didn't think there was any harm in saying hello to the old gent. I'm sorry.
I think there is harm. I tell her Santa Claus is a myth, and you bring her down here to meet a very convincing old gentleman with real whiskers.
What's wrong with that?
You're right. Nothing. I guess we might as well let her try heroin, too.
Fantasy instead of a reality. Keep waiting for Prince Charming to come along, and when he does, he'll be a...
We were talking about Susie, not you.
Whether you agree with me or not, I'll have to ask you to respect my wishes.
Respect her wishes. Someone's read one too many issues of McCall's.
You sent for me.
Yes, sit down, won't you?
This is a lovely little girl you have here.
Thank you. Susan's the reason I asked you to drop down. She's a little confused. Would you tell her that you're not really Santa Claus, that there's actually no such person?
I'm sorry to disagree with you, Mrs. Walker, but not only is there such a person, but here I am to prove it.
Oh, God, it's the St. Patrick's Day leprechaun from last year all over again.
The truth. What is your name?
Chris Kringle, I'll bet you're in the first grade.
Second.
No, I mean your real name.
It is my real name.
Christopher Kenneth Kringle.
Gracious.
It's a progressive school.
Oh, progressive school. Well, where did you get such a lovely outfit?
Macy's. We get 10% off.
Do they come in my size?
Would you go in and talk to Mrs. Adams for a minute?
All right.
Goodbye, young lady. Hope I see you again soon.
I hope so, too. Bye.
Chris Kringle. Address, Brooks Memorial Home for the Aged.
If you care to call them and ask for Dr. Pierce, he'll be happy to confirm it.
Yes, who could forget that famous character from Christmas folklore, Dr. Pierce from the Brooks Old Age Home.
Older than my teeth. No, really.
Well, that's the truth.
Next of kin, Donna, Blitzen, Prancer.
And Dancer.
If you ever speak to my child again, I'll strangle you with a pine garland and hide your body up a chimney.
I'm sorry, Mr.
Kringle.
Yes, well, I'm afraid we're going to have to make a change. You see, the Santa Claus we had last year is back in town, and, well, I feel I owe it to him to,
Have I done something wrong?
No.
It's just that you're terrifyingly insane.
Yes?
Mr. Macy wants to see you immediately, Mrs. Walker.
Oh, yes, right away. You'll have to excuse me. Miss Adams will give you your voucher on the way out, and you'll receive a full week's salary.
Well, I suppose I can always return to the North Pole in my castle and army of elven slaves.
Now, about that new sales policy that you two seem to have initiated.
It was
It
his
was our
idea.
idea.
Better to clear it with the sales department first, don't you think?
Mr. Macy,
Macy's Santa Claus sending customers to Gimbel's. Preposterous.
What?
Yet, we cannot quarrel with success. Telephone calls, telegrams, over 500 parents expressing their undying gratitude to Macy's.
I'll need that goodwill once the public learns the truth about what that red star stands for.
If we haven't got what a customer wants, we'll send him where he can get it. In this way, Macy's will be known as the store with a heart. The store that puts public service ahead of profits. And consequently, of course, we'll make more profits. Well, I just want to express our appreciation and to tell you that in your Christmas envelopes, there'll be a more practical expression of our gratitude.
Thank you, Mr. Macy.
That'll be all.
Thank you.
Oh, and tell that wonderful Santa Claus of yours that I haven't forgotten him either. No, never mind. I'll tell him myself. In the morning.
Well, that meeting could have been an inter-office memorandum.
A bonus.
I fired him.
Who?
Santa Claus?
No.
He's crazy. He thinks he is Santa Claus.
Well, I don't care if he thinks he's the Easter Bunny. You better get him back.
Well, it's too great a risk. He might have a fit or something. I tell you, the man's insane.
Right, but how insane? On a scale of 1 to people who understand the plot of Primer.
Get Sawyer to examine him. He's a psychologist. That's what he's being paid for, to examine the employees.
Can't get him back. He's already gone.
Well, then you better scoot after him and get him, because if you don't, we're going to have a very unmerry Christmas.
Oh, Mr. Kringle. I'm afraid I acted rather hastily and perhaps unfairly. This other Santa Claus, well, Mr. Macy has found something else for him to do, and, well, we want you to stay on.
Well, this is mighty good news.
I'll call the Salvation Army back and tell them to shove their job offer up their arse.
More and more worried about Christmas. Christmas is not just a day, it's a frame of mind, and that's what they've been changing.
And now they're gonna pay!
Taking me back. Maybe I can do something about it. And I'm glad I met you and your daughter. You're my test case.
We are?
Yes, in the way of the whole thing in miniature. And if I win you over, well, there's still hope. If not, I guess I'm through. But I'll try, and I'm warning you, I don't give up easily.
You and that daughter of yours are in for a month of living hell.
To Mr. Sawyer's office for a little examination.
Mental examination?
Well, partly, yes.
Oh, I don't mind. I've taken dozens. Haven't failed one yet. Yeah. How many days in the week? 7. How many things do you see? 4. Muscular coordination? Perfect. Who was vice president under James Monroe? Daniel D. Tompkins. I'll bet your Mr. Sawyer doesn't know that one.
On the one hand, he believes he's Santa Claus, but on the other hand, he knows some obscure presidential trivia, so overall, he's emotionally balanced.
So, what are we thinking so far?
It's like a jet of hot piss in the eyes. So, not quite as bad as I expected.
It's strange. It is Miracle on 34th Street, yet it isn't.
It's uncanny, isn't it?
It's interesting to think about the scenes from the original they've chosen to cut out so far. I'm a little disappointed they got rid of the scene where Chris speaks Dutch to the little war orphan.
That scene never impressed me.
Really? Why not?
So he speaks Dutch. What's so amazing about that? Millions of people do it. Or thousands, or however many people there are in Dutch, in the Dutch lands. Anybody could do it.
Could you?
Could I
speak Dutch?
Yeah.
Really?
Go on then. Say something in Dutch.
What should I say?
Say, I can speak Dutch. Please.
Okay.
Ik kan geen Nederlands.
Ik kan geen Nederlands. There you go, smartass. You said say something in Dutch.
Just push play, for fuck's sake.
Mr. Albert Sawyer, tarot cards, palms red, income tax.
How much is 3 times 5?
You asked me that before.
I'm conducting this examination. How much is 3 times 5?
Same as it was before. 15. You're rather nervous, aren't you, Mr. Sawyer? Do you get enough sleep?
My personal habits are of no concern to you.
I'm over 3 times 7, however much that is.
One all tied up.
How many fingers do you see?
3. You bite your nails, too.
I want you to stand up straight with your arms extended.
Muscular coordination test. Surely I'll be glad to.
Are you supposed to spasmodically slap yourself in the face like that?
It's caused by insecurity.
He's like a rock'em sock'em robot committing self-harm.
That will be all, Mr. Kringle. The examination's over. You may go. And it may interest you to know that I've been a happily married man for 26 years.
How many years have you been married in total? Thank you. Good night.
Your wife, Mr. Sawyer?
What else? Agnes, how many times have I told you not to bother with the office? No, I give you a perfectly liberal allowance. If that fat, stupid brother of yours would get a job, you wouldn't have to be pestering me all the time. Not a penny.
You see, the phone call implies that his marriage is not actually happy, contrary to what he just told Chris. We call that comic irony.
Jokes are always so much better after you explain them.
And we call that sarcasm.
Chris Kringle, we never pressed him further.
Mrs. Walker, after giving that man a comprehensive examination, it's my considered opinion he should be dismissed immediately.
Dr. Pierce, Mr. Sawyer.
Excuse me, didn't Chris answer the questions correctly?
Well, yes, he did, but there was a complete lack of concentration.
He kept making lists and checking them the entire time.
Wait a minute. People are institutionalized to prevent them from hurting themselves or other people. His is a delusion for good. He only wants to be friendly, helpful.
And to enter people's homes at night, quietly, while they sleep.
Charge this man. So when he begins to exhibit his latent maniacal tendencies, which I assure you he will, the responsibility will be entirely yours.
Dr. Pierce, if there's the slightest possibility of trouble,
Now, what trouble could Chris possibly get into?
No? Well, coming to work, for instance, a policeman might ask him his name. Now, you know that would get him into a fight.
I don't know. He's a spry old fella. I bet he could take a cop.
Someone here in the store to rent him a room. Then they could go to and from work together.
Oh, yes, that would solve everything. That's a wonderful idea.
Yes, isn't it? Your son's away at school. What about his room?
You mean my wife's man cave? I don't know.
In the meantime, you take Chris home to dinner.
Oh, no, I couldn't.
Oh, really, Mrs. Walker? If I can supply the room, the least you can do is furnish a free meal.
What sort of games do you play, Susan?
Well, I'm in the Model UN, and some of my school chums and I have started an investment club. We're bullish on Owens Corning, but then again, who isn't?
All of the children were animals. Homer was supposed to be the zookeeper. He said, "What kind of an animal are you?" I said, "I'm not an animal. I'm a girl." He said, "Only animals allowed here. Bye."
Oh, that's too bad. Sounds like a wonderful game to me. Of course, to play it right, you've got to have imagination.
Why is he negging her? That's not cool.
See something and it's really not there.
Well, yes, but I believe imagination is a place by itself. Yeah, you know, like, well, you know the British nation and the French nation. Well, this is imagination. Say, how would you like to make snowballs in the summertime? Or drive a bus down Fifth Avenue,
Remember when we were kids, how we'd always play Fifth Avenue bus driver?
Of geese.
Those were good times.
Well, the first place, you'd have to learn to pretend. That's imagination. Now, the next time they play zoo, you tell Homer you're a monkey.
But I don't know how to be a monkey.
What did I just tell you?
And stand up. First, you bend way over. That's it. Keep your arms loose. Now, then you scratch.
He's showing her how to pretend to be a monkey from Train Spotting.
On the contrary, the firm of Hayslip, Sherman, and Hayslip has been very good to me.
Of course, I'm still hoping to get that position at Wolfram and Hart.
Naturally.
We're having our first lesson in pretending, and we're doing pretty well, too.
I know it's her first lesson, but her space work sucks. Where is she even supposed to be?
Daytime.
Hello? Oh, Mr. Shellhammer, that's fine. The Shellhammers have a room for you.
That's very kind of them, but I've accepted Mr. Gailey's offer to stay with him.
Mr. Gailey?
I've got a spare coffin at my place. It's no problem.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Shellhammer, but it seems he's made other arrangements. Yes, well, goodbye.
Well, here we are.
Steaks.
No, it's venison. A friend of mine at the office gave it to me.
What's venison?
Oh, deer meat. If you don't like it, I have eggs for you.
Could I have eggs, too? Venison, you know, I couldn't.
I don't want to fall back into old habits.
I forgot.
Well, there must be something you want for Christmas. Something that even your mother doesn't know about. Why don't you give me a chance?
All right.
Good.
That's what I want for Christmas.
A doll's house like this?
No, a real house.
A real house?
If you're really Santa Claus, you can get it for me. And if you can't,
Then you'll never see your friend the Winter Warlock again.
like Mother says.
Well, just because every child doesn't get his wish, that doesn't mean there isn't a Santa Claus.
Right, and just because they keep finding bloodless corpses in the basement, that doesn't mean Mr. Gailey is a vampire. I've heard these excuses before.
Swinging. She can't get it, huh?
I didn't say that. Well, that's a tall order, but I'll do the best I can. May I keep this?
Mm-hmm.
Good night, Susan.
Good night.
Do you like living in the city?
Oh, it's all right. I'd kind of like to get out in the country sometime, though. Not a big place, just one of those junior partner deals in Manhattan.
I know the kind you mean. One of those colonial houses.
Or Cape Cod.
Or an abandoned abbey.
I've been thinking about Mrs. Walker. You know, like a lot of divorced women, She's determined that no one will ever hurt her again. With a little more effort on your part, she might be made to crawl out of a shell.
What I, Santa Claus, am telling you, Fred, is get in there and close that deal. The dude used the woman's daughter to scam an invite to Thanksgiving dinner before he'd even actually met her. How much more effort is he supposed to put in?
It's a deal.
Good.
You ready? Oh, no, you don't. I'm not going to be cheated that way. All my life I've wondered, and now I'm going to find out. I'm going to learn the answer to the question that's troubled the world for centuries.
Is Rudolph canon?
Does Santa Claus sleep with his whiskers inside or out?
Inside or out of what?
Always sleep with them out. Cold air makes them grow.
Maybe I should try that with my micro penis.
I was saying that as the character. Just want to make that clear. Forget it, Jake. It's Candy Town.
This is one event I never expected to see.
Two can play at this game, Mr. Macy. If Gimbals hadn't got what the customer wants, we'll send him over to Macy's.
It'll be a pleasure, Mr. Gimble.
Just a kindly Father Christmas, cackling like a Batman villain.
There they sat, adult but children still, children at heart. It was summer, warm, glorious summer. The end. Do you like that story, Susan?
I prefer Jude the Obscure.
Do you think I'm going to get my house for Christmas?
Well, I can't promise, but we mustn't give up hope. Good night, Susan. Tomorrow evening, I'll read you another story.
I can't. I've got to go to school.
Isn't this vacation?
Yes, but this is what they call a required function.
Required function?
But this is a subpoena to appear before the House Un-American Activities Committee.
That's right, Comrade Kringle. You've been served.
Christmas play to be given in the modern manner. What does that mean?
A Christmas play without Santa Claus.
Well, a Christmas play without a Santa Claus?
What would it even be about? Jesus Christ.
Told by a short address. Subject, exploding the myth of Santa Claus.
I haven't been this upset since I lost the Coke sponsorship to those polar bears.
Mr. Albert Sawyer.
I'm very happy you enjoyed our little play. And now it gives me great pleasure to introduce our old friend, Mr. Albert Sawyer.
Parents and young people, it's thrilling indeed to see so many happy, smiling faces. I know you're all looking forward to a joyous Christmas.
Well, you can forget it.
Those of you in this intelligent group know this is going to be a Christmas without Santa Claus. Such a person as Santa Claus, St. Nicholas, or Kris Kringle does not exist. Never has existed and never will exist.
I'm going to shove the spirit of Christmas right up his ass.
Suit represents the wishful dreaming of all people. He's the all-giver, the generous father. Mature adults who keep this myth alive are clinging to childish fantasies and show themselves afraid to face realities. People who play Santa have a strong feeling of guilt. I see nothing to laugh at. Far from being amusing, this myth. Far from being amusing.
This is a weird side hustle for a department store psychologist.
Amusing, this myth is actually harmful. Only stupid old men prancing around in white whiskers keep this ridiculous myth alive. Now he's gone too far.
You better watch out.
So, in response to a perceived personal insult, Kris Kringle brutally beats an unarmed man with a cane in front of a group of children.
Now that's a Santa I can believe in.
Psychiatrist to examine him.
Then you better do it right away before Mr. Macy hears about it.
Oh, that's right. You explain it to Mr. Kringle. After all, you're his friend.
No, I can't. Well, I've grown very fond of him, and this is going to hurt him deeply. I just can't.
All right, what can we do?
Call the cops? There was a violent assault in a room full of witnesses. You fucking snitch.
Waiting outside, and once we get him in the car, we'll drive him straight off to Bellevue Hospital.
Yes, that'd do it. I'll ride up front with the driver.
It's nice they allowed him to keep his whooping cane for protection, in case he runs afoul of Vern Gagne while he's in there.
Hello, Chris.
Hello, Fred.
You flunked that psychiatrist examination deliberately, didn't you?
You clubbed that guy in the skull with a stick of wood while dressed as Santa Claus in front of a room full of elementary schoolers who had come to watch a Christmas play deliberately, didn't you?
Feeling that Mrs. Walker was beginning to believe in me. Now I know she was only humoring me all the time.
Mrs. Walker didn't know anything about taking pictures with the mayor. That was Mr. Sawyer's idea.
It isn't just Mrs. Walker. Take Sawyer. Contemptible, deceitful, dishonest. But he's out there, and I'm here.
A thin-skinned, aggressive old white man with zero tolerance for unbelievers roaming free. That's what the world needs more of.
People like me who believe in you and what you stand for. People like Susie who are just beginning to. Chris, you can't let them down.
You're right. Let's get out of here.
Now, wait a minute. You flunked that examination, but good.
Yes. I said our first president was Calvin Coolidge. Oh, but you can fix that. You'll think of something.
Say I was dehydrated or exhausted or a sex addict. One of those always works.
The only chance would be to prove you legally sane in a public hearing.
Good. I can think of nothing better. Don't you see?
I'm completely detached from reality.
And for all.
Judicial system humors white person.
Saint Nico, sicko. Seasonal Santa sans sanity city suspects.
Do you solemnly swear the evidence you are about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. Good morning, Your Honor. Good morning.
I assume you got the little present, wink wink, I left in your stocking?
My name's Thomas Mara. What's yours?
Chris Kringle.
Oh. Where do you live?
That's what this hearing will decide.
It's a very sound answer, Mr. Kringle.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Well, it seems like the fix is in. Should I even bother presenting a case?
Clause?
Of course.
The state rests, Your Honor.
In view of this statement, do you still wish to put in a defense, young man?
I do, Your Honor. I'm fully aware of my client's opinions. In fact, that is the entire case against him. That Mr. Kringle is not sane because he believes himself to be Santa Claus.
An entirely logical assumption, I'm afraid.
Not necessarily, Your Honor.
Look into my eyes.
Yet no one questions your sanity because you are Judge Harper.
Mr. Kringle is the subject of this hearing, not me.
Exactly. So I intend to prove that Mr. Kringle is Santa Claus.
To that end, I'd like to introduce into evidence Exhibit A, Mr. Kringle's sack.
What does Mr. Hayslip, Sherman, and Hayslip say about the trial?
That I was jeopardizing the dignity of the firm, that I either dropped the case or they dropped me. So, leaving me no choice.
I dropped them from a top floor window.
Fred, you didn't.
Well, I can't let Chris down. He needs me and all the rest of us need him.
Darling, he's a kind, wonderful old man.
When he's not caving in your skull.
You can't throw away your career because of sentiment.
I'm not throwing a career away. I'll get by. I'm a darn good lawyer.
And the Carpathian Prince.
Shake your faith in me, does it?
This is a question of common sense, not faith.
Faith is believing in things when common sense tells you not to.
That's what makes it the foundation of cryptocurrency, trickle-down economics, religion.
I wish you could let yourself believe in people like Chris, and in fun, and love, and joy, and all the other intangibles.
Can't pay the rent with intangibles.
And you can't live without them.
Boy, she is dead center in the bite zone right now.
Blind faith, darling. String along with me. I think you've got a right to ask that.
I think I have the right to ask you to be a little bit more practical and realistic.
Yeah, I suppose you have. It's all cockeyed. Here we are, as close as two people can possibly be.
So they've each taken a shit in the presence of the other?
I've tried my best.
I know you have, darling, and so have I. But we're going to need a lot more than each other's arms. And somehow I just don't think we've got it.
Hold up, you're dumping me?
Funny. With all my common sense, I was just beginning to think this time it might work out.
So was I, but... Can I help you trim the tree?
Thanks, I can do it.
Well, good night.
Good night.
Wow, so breakups were a lot less interesting to watch back then, huh?
So here's a fun fact. In this version, Doris Walker is played by Teresa Wright, whose Hollywood career began in the early 1940s and who was nominated for an Academy Award for each of her first 3 films. She was actually nominated twice in 1943 for Best Actress for Pride of the Yankees and for Best Supporting Actress for Mrs. Miniver, the second of which she won.
Well, whoop-de-doo for her.
That's very impressive.
I know. And by the late 1950s, she was forced to scratch out a living, taking whatever parts she could get, mostly guest roles on TV.
A fate worse than death.
That's overstating it a bit.
Precisely, Jack. It's a little thing I call the Oscar curse. It's what happens sometimes when an up-and-coming actor wins an Academy Award, and instead of making them a bigger star, it leads to professional and personal disappointment.
And this is a concept you came up with on your own.
It's a phenomenon only I have ever noticed, yes. For example, Judi Dench. She won Best Supporting Actress for Shakespeare in Love and has been on a downhill slide ever since.
That's not a very good example. Judi Dench is a legend. She has been in dozens of movies since Shakespeare in Love, and she's been nominated for several more Oscars.
And she hasn't won a single time. And she's not the only cursed Oscar winner from Shakespeare in Love. What about Gwyneth Paltrow? She won Best Actress, but what's she done since?
Iron Man.
Iron Man 2.
Iron Man 3.
The Avengers.
Avengers Infinity War.
Avengers Endgame.
Sounds like she's stuck in a rut to me. Last and best example, Tom Hanks.
You bollock braid. Tom Hanks has been a movie star for 40 years. He's got little statues falling out his arse crack.
He won Best Actor at the Oscars 2 years in a row in the 90s, and I just saw him in Asteroid City earlier this year, so I don't think he's had any trouble finding work. Plus, wasn't he nominated for Best Supporting Actor a few years ago for playing Mr. Rogers?
Yes, but the first time he was nominated for an Oscar was in 1989, and the very next year, Chet Hanks was born.
Well,
right, we'll give you that one.
But the rest of the case needs work.
Makes no difference since I don't retain criticism. On with the show!
CEO supports seasonal employee.
Now we know it's a fantasy.
Your name, sir?
R.H. Macy.
Didn't you die in 1877? Don't worry, I won't tell. I'm a vampire, too.
Yes, he's an employee of mine, Kris Kringle.
Do you believe him to be of sound mind?
What possible difference could that make to me?
See, you're under oath. Do you really believe that this man is Santa Claus?
Macy slightly embarrassed, company revenue unaffected. I can live with that.
Do you?
Oh, come on, it's not the Nuremberg trials.
I do.
That is all.
You are fired.
There, now he feels better.
Snatching away someone's livelihood always cheers him up.
There is no such person as Santa Claus, and everybody knows it. I ask that the court make an immediate ruling. Is there or is there not a Santa Claus?
And while you're at it, Your Honor, who's a better detective, Sherlock Holmes or Hercule Poirot? And is Pluto a planet or what?
This court will take a short recess to consider the matter.
I don't care about the law. I'm talking about politics. You go back in there and rule that there's no Santa Claus, we won't be even able to put you in the primaries.
Oh, Charlie. I'm a responsible judge. How can I seriously rule that there is a Santa Claus?
All right, go back in there and rule there isn't.
They'll be fishing your body out of the East River by morning.
They're stockings. So what happens to all the toys that are supposed to be in them stockings? Nobody buys them. Oh, the toy manufacturers are gonna love that. What about the Christmas card makers, the candy companies? Oh, boy, are you gonna be a popular guy.
Just imagine how devastating it would be to the economy if people found out there was no Santa Claus.
If you go back in there and rule that there's no Santa Claus, you can count on getting just 2 votes. Your own and that district attorney's out there.
One. District Attorney's Republican.
I don't know. Crushing the dreams of children seems pretty on brand for Republicans. I wouldn't count the district attorney out.
This court has just consulted the highest authority available.
Brian Dennehy.
The traditions of American justice demand a broad and unprejudiced view of such a controversial matter. And therefore, this court is determined to keep an open mind and hear the evidence from either side.
But can my opponent produce any evidence in support of this contention?
Your Honor, I can.
If my client could be induced to laugh, you would all see that his little round belly does indeed shake like a bowl full of jelly.
Thomas Mara, Jr.
Thomas Mara.
Hi, Daddy.
Tommy, you know the difference between telling the truth and telling a lie, don't you?
Everybody knows you shouldn't tell a lie, especially in court.
Unless your last name is Trump, and then the judge will do nothing to stop you.
There he is, sitting over there.
I object, Your Honor.
Overruled.
Tommy, why are you so sure there's a Santa Claus?
Because Daddy told me so. Didn't you, Daddy?
Damn it, I should have disillusioned him years ago.
And you believe your daddy, don't you?
Sure I do. Daddy wouldn't tell me anything that wasn't so. Would you, Daddy?
Thank you, Tommy.
Bye, Daddy.
Goodbye, traitor who just ruined his father's career.
The state of New York is willing to concede the existence of a Santa Claus.
But only in the deistic sense.
But I ask that Mr. Gailey produce authoritative evidence that Mr. Kringle is the one and only Santa Claus.
Your point is well taken, Mr. Mara.
Brian Dennehy does not approve.
Mr. Gailey, are you ready to show that Mr. Kringle is Santa Claus? On the basis of competent authority?
Not at this time, Your Honor. I ask for an adjournment until this time tomorrow.
We just never saw this question coming.
Tomorrow afternoon.
I can't wait to make another Jack Reed movie.
That's all ready. What are you doing?
Writing to Mr. Kringle to tell him I believe in everything he told me. Everything will turn out fine.
And to passive-aggressively remind him about the house I asked for.
Where shall I send it?
Why don't you send it to the county courthouse?
Or you could just give it to him.
What did you write, Mother?
The bearer of this letter is an assassin. Kill him at once.
Doris. Go take your bath now. Could you give me the number of the main post office, please?
Plot expediting department.
Are you kidding? We got maybe a couple 100,000.
No, letters.
We sure would. Hey, lady, that's not a bad idea. Thank you.
Chris, I've got bad news for you. I've tried every way to get some competent authority. I wired the mayor, the governor, everybody.
Susan. And means more to me than all the mayors and governors in the world.
I'm glad you feel that way, Chris, because there's still the matter of my fee.
My
Must be going for a quickie.
Your Honor, the defense has yet to produce one bit of authoritative proof that this man is really Santa Claus. And in view of the fact that it is Christmas Eve and we're all anxious to get to our homes, I ask that these commitment papers be signed without further delay.
Mr. Gailey, have you anything further to offer?
I should like to submit the following evidence, Your Honor. It concerns an official agency of the United States government.
They're called the Demon Research Initiative, and they've been persecuting me for years.
Business last year of $1,112,877,174.
Your Honor, I'm sure they're all deeply gratified to know that the Post Office Department is doing nicely, but it hardly has any bearing on this case.
Furthermore, the U.S. postal laws make it a criminal offense to willfully misdirect mail or intentionally deliver it to the wrong party.
Oi, Pete Postfillade, get on with it so we can all go home.
To admit that the Post Office Department is authoritative, prosperous, and efficient.
For the record?
For the record. Anything to get on with this case.
Then, Your Honor, I offer these letters in evidence. They're simply addressed to Santa Claus, yet they were each delivered to Mr. Kringle by bona fide employees of the Post Office Department.
Bona fide? Ooh, look what a fancy vampire lawyer boy he is.
I have further exhibits, Your Honor, but I hesitate to produce them.
Oh, I'm sure we'd all be glad to see them.
Oh, yes, indeed. Put them on my desk.
On your desk?
Yes.
Very well, Your Honor.
Waiter. You know it's wacky when even Brian Dennehy doesn't know what to think.
At last I taste the sweet milky nog of revenge!
Your Honor, every one of these letters is addressed to Santa Claus, and the post office has delivered them to my client. Therefore, the United States government recognizes this man, Kris Kringle, as Santa Claus.
If the United States of America believes this man is Santa Claus, then this court will not dispute it. Case dismissed.
I officially exist. Suck on that, Jesus.
And a Merry Christmas to you.
And a Merry Christmas to you, Mr. Kringle.
Oh, I got your note. It made me very happy.
Oh, I'm glad. Chris, won't you come to dinner tonight?
I know. I'm working tonight. You see, it's Christmas Eve.
I'm picking up an extra shift at the Chinese restaurant where I'm a dishwasher.
What's the matter with Susan?
I think she misses Chris.
Don't worry, young lady. Chris is bound to come.
The delusional old man who is also your only friend hasn't forgotten about you.
Got a lot of presents.
Not the one I wanted. Not the one Mr. Kringle was going to get for me.
What was that?
It doesn't matter. I didn't get it. I knew it wouldn't be here, but I get a letter or something about it. Hello?
Hello, Susan. Merry Christmas.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was trying to call Susan O'Brien. She's another little girl I befriended at Macy's. This is awkward.
You're not Santa Claus, that's why. Just a nice man with white whiskers like my mother says. I shouldn't have believed you.
Mom, phone.
Susan. Merry Christmas, Chris.
I'm sorry Susan is disappointed in me.
Oh, she'll be all right. Here's Fred.
Merry Christmas. Where are you?
Out at the home. Fred, we're giving a little party this afternoon. Will you bring Mrs. Walker and Susan out to help us celebrate?
Of course I will.
Now, you turn off the parkway at Seymour. Drive 3 blocks, then turn onto Ashley Drive. You'll see it on the right.
Got it.
Boy, I can't wait until GPS renders getting driving directions from other people a forgotten and unmourned relic of the past. Can you?
I was wrong when I told you not to believe in Mr. Kringle. You must have faith in him.
But he didn't get me. That doesn't make sense, Mother.
Faith is believing in things even when common sense tells you not to.
My vampire lawyer boyfriend told me that on the day I thought we broke up, but I guess we didn't.
Well, you want them to the first time. You still gotta believe in people.
I'll try.
Just as long as you don't believe financial advice from people who use the word stonks.
There it is, Ashley Drive.
I do believe.
I can't hold it another second. Stop!
Susan!
I'll be a few minutes. It's just number 1, but it's a lot.
Susan! Susan? You shouldn't be running around in other people's houses.
But this is my house, Mommy. The one I asked Mr. Kringle
Now,
for.
Susan, darling.
It's just like I imagined it. The previous owners even took an upper decker before they left and everything.
Things don't turn out right the first time. You still got to believe. Mr. Kringle is Santa Claus. He is. I'm going to see my swings.
You told her that?
Are you out of your fucking mind? I only said that stuff because I was trying to get in your pants.
The house seems to be for sale. We can't let it down.
Oh, Fred. Darling, I always believed in you. It's just my ridiculous common sense.
Well, it even makes sense to believe in me now.
I offer you eternal life.
I take a little old man and legally prove that he's Santa Claus. Now, you know. Oh, no.
He left the murder weapon, and now my prints are on it.
By one of the tenants.
Maybe. Maybe I didn't do such a remarkable thing after all.
And so Kris Kringle was free to kill and kill again. God bless you all and Merry Christmas!
Now that we've watched the entire thing, based only on this version, my question to you both is, Kris Kringle, Santa or not Santa?
Not Santa. Definitely not Santa.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, my more interesting question to you both then is, assuming for the sake of argument that he is Santa, how'd he wind up in an old age home on Long Island?
Perhaps someone else at the North Pole had him committed.
It's not an asylum, though. It's a nursing home or whatever, right? Do you commit someone to a nursing home?
When you put your mom in a home, did you have to commit her?
I have no idea. I drove by the front entrance and pushed her out of the truck. Whatever happened after that is none of my business.
Maybe the elves saw that Santa was starting to undergo a physical and mental decline, so they decided to put him in the home for his own good.
Would the elves have Santa's power of attorney, though?
Good point. Maybe it was the reindeer. They are listed as his next of kin.
And if the reindeer did it, maybe it wasn't a for Santa's own good kind of deal. It could have been revenge, since he apparently drove them with a whip.
I know I'd hold a grudge if you tried to motivate me with a whip.
Well, that would be a waste of time. You're not going to go any faster.
I know the truth.
Jack?
The truth?
It was Kris Kringle himself, on account of his wife. Keeping the spark alive in a long-term relationship can be a challenge, especially when you're immortal and you live in the ice and snow on the top of the bloody world. Santa had his suspicions. He knew something was off. He and Mrs. Claus had grown distant from one another so gradually that he hadn't noticed as it was happening. But then one day he stuck his head up and looked around and realized that for some time he had been married in name only. Having had this epiphany, Santa was less surprised than he might have been when he came home unexpectedly early from the toy shop one afternoon and found his wife in their bed having it off with Hermie, the misfit elf, whose interest in dentistry was not, it turned out, the limit of his oral expertise.
Wasn't Hermie gay?
I always regarded his sexuality as open to interpretation.
Feeling like he no longer belongs in his own home, Kris packs some clothes and quietly departs for the United States, where he expects he will have an easier time securing seasonal work as a department store Santa Claus. He checks himself in as a resident at the old age home, gets his job at Macy's, and settles in to pay his penance for being a poor husband, for neglecting the affections of the one person he promised to place before all others.
Are you sure this is your monologue? Because
having left the North Pole, he knows its magic will eventually fade and render him mortal. His misadventure with Doris and Susan and Fred and the New York City judicial system provided some unexpected distraction, but Kris is keenly aware that it, like everything else in his world, will last but a short time. He has no life to look forward to, only more existence, in all its crushing solitude. And one day, not far off, he privately hopes, it, too, will end. He is, for the moment, living proof of the words of Frost. Nothing gold can stay. Not coins, Not wedding bands. Not even the bright gold buckle on Santa's belt.
Who's hungry?
Hey folks, thanks so much for joining us for another Stuffy and Friends Turkey Day special. And now to tell you about how you can help out this channel, here's our old friend Hans Krieger. Hans?
Dankeschön. Click the thumbs up button to indicate that you found this video entertaining, and click the subscribe button to ensure you do not miss future videos. If you wish to become a supporter of this channel, please go to www.patreon.com/SteveShives to become a patron, or click the join button to become a channel member. Please have a safe and happy holiday, and be sure to take time to let the friends and family in your life know that they are valued and loved.
Thanks, Hans. That was succinct and unexpectedly positive.
Was there a problem with the take?
No, what you did was fine. It's just, typically, you're the baroquely grim one, but this time you were straight to the point, and oh, by the way, everyone, be sure to hug your loved ones. Meanwhile, Jack was the guy with the long, gratuitously depressing story.
Not even the most shallow and prosaic person who ever lived could be done full justice by a one-sentence summary of their nature. Such a description could never hope to capture even an infinitesimal fragment of an individual with the densely laminated layers of experience and bottomless depths of complexity as myself. Does it disturb you to be forced to confront the fact that all others, even those whom we regard as our closest and most intimate confidants, are ultimately as unknowable as the dimensionless, devouring darkness itself?
There he is.